A trunk show? Yep, one of those happened at work this week. Hi, and welcome to Quilt Meets World, where we have adventures in piecing and joy. I'm Russ. Come on into my sewing room. Work has been a little bit of a roller coaster this week. Monday, while we were in the office, I was over talking with a coworker about something. Don't remember what, doesn't matter. But one of our favorites from the Maryland office tried to sneak up on him. I couldn't quite hide my excitement when I saw her, so he ended up turning around and getting all happy to see her too. The first words out of my mouth to her were, "If I had known that you were going to be here, I wouldn't have taken out the quilt from my car so you can see it." And she was like, "Well, you can bring it in tomorrow. I'm here all week." So I got the kind of a little bit of idea to say, hey, why don't I do a little mini trunk show for you? Because you only get to see the pictures and you haven't seen any of my work. And I've got a few things laying around the house. So when I got home Monday night, I packed up a bunch of quilts and did a mini trunk show in the office Tuesday morning. Many of my coworkers were kind of upset that they missed the trunk show, but I couldn't keep them out all day. And, every time that somebody would come by, I'm sure that they would end up asking. And, worst of all, I didn't want any of them to start growing legs. The amusing part about the trunk show is on the way home, the quilts were heavy enough in the passenger seat to set off of the little dash light that said, "Your passenger's not wearing their seatbelt. Your passenger's not wearing your seatbelt." Thankfully, it's just a light and not yelling at me. But yeah, I brought in a lot of quilts. I think it was about a dozen, which partly surprised me that I had a dozen quilts just around the house. But a lot of them were wall hangings and table runners and stuff. So smaller stuff that hadn't quite found a home yet. The big ones that I showed off were Mom's quilt, the purple quilt from a couple years ago that I really love. I'm not getting rid of that one. And the puzzle mystery quilt that I had just finished. Those were the big ones. Most everything else was on the smaller size. So it's not like I gave a lot of stuff. I need to talk with the events organizers to say, hey, why don't we have times where, folks that do, artsy stuff on their time outside the office to basically showcase them, have a little area where we can just show off their work. Again, I'm a little concerned about things trying to walk away. Much less, we're not going to get much done on those days that we bring stuff in. But I think it would be a lot of fun to be able to just do another type of trunk show in the office just to show off all kinds of fun stuff. With that high, though, also came a low. We had a change going through the system. And yeah, that was a nightmare. The environment that they gave us was a dumpster fire. I had asked a handful of tables to be refreshed, and they said, no, it's too much work. And I ended up having to take all of the mappings that were a dumpster fire in the test environment and incorporate them into my process and hope for the best, because I knew that there was going to be a lot of kickouts. And the way that the process is, there's no way to determine what the kickouts are, because my process isn't by journal, it's by ledger. So get in there and try to push it through, and there's all kinds of things not lining up. It's difficult to see what's going on. I can tell that some things were working, and then the stuff that wasn't working, I couldn't tell. You can't really determine, is it because something else in the journal is missing a mapping, or did they screw something up with the coding? And I like to try to be positive with them, but I can't be positive with them yet. After we saw there was so many problems going on trying to get everything mapped in, we said, well, why can't we run this report over here in this other related system that should give us everything by journal, and we can see how things are mapping so we can get the proper comfort. And they were the people who are responsible for the reporting system said, did your developer say that you should test this using this report? And I said, the developer didn't give us a test plan. I know the process in and out. I know what things should be doing. And this is going to help me get, the comfort. Yeah, fought. That didn't happen. So I had to go back and, find another way to just basically say, yeah, it looks like it. So I documented the yeah, it looks like it. And we went to go do the negative test, which the developer argued against. And I said, no, I need to see this because I need to make sure it works when it is not mapped. And we processed it through, and I asked for the error messages, and they said, here it is. And I'm like, this isn't right. You're not giving me the proper error messages. And then they finally figured out how to give me the messages I'm looking for. And I said, okay, for this portion of the change, I see what I need, and it looks good. I don't see anything for this portion of the change. And they kept saying that it was kicking out before that error message. And I said, well, I can't sign off until I see the error message. And they said, well, here's an example. I was like, that's for a different group. So fighting back and forth. And finally, after about 2 hours, the manager says, oh, I found the journals and it got posted. And I'm like, what do you mean it got posted? There's no mapping. But it got posted. Again, there's no mapping. And we had to go through the whole cycle, show them that it shouldn't have worked, and found out that there's a bug in it. And I just looked at them and said, and you were arguing that I shouldn't have to test this, and that's where I found the problem. So, yeah, it's just going to be a little bit more annoying dealing with them because, like, my bar was already pretty low, and now it's gone even lower with them. The good news is the change that happened for the planning side, or that needs to happen, that tested out fine. Everything looked good with that. I'm happy with that. I'm just not happy with the actual side, and they both have to go in together because they use the same tables. So the folks that are responsible for the actual numbers, they're going to be unhappy that they have to deal with it for another month. But oh well. More fun stuff is Friday, as I was logging out of work and getting ready to pick up Riley from daycare, I got a notification on my phone that my new printer was 9 stops away. Anyone that gets that notification from Amazon knows that could mean 5 minutes, an hour, or sometimes even longer depending on where you are on the route and at what point the driver decides to take their, lunch or dinner break. I pulled up the map on my phone and it said that they were up in Kennesaw, which is the next town north of me. So I said, I might as well go get Riley because I have no idea if I will beat them or not, and just basically try to race them home. Probably would have been smart if I had texted my neighbor and said, can you watch out for it just to make sure that there's no porch pirates? But then I realized that probably wasn't necessary. I got to daycare, and that's about a 20-minute drive from here, and looked at my phone, and they were 7 stops away. So I was like, okay, I feel like it's going to be pretty good to beat Amazon to the house. When I got back to the house with Riley, it was still 4 stops away. So I'm like, yes, I'm going to be good. Riley, Percy, and I, we laid on the couch for a little bit until I saw Amazon was approaching the final stretch of the road that I live off of. Not the one I live on, the one I live off of. I got her in her kennel at that point, propped up the front door and everything so I could receive the printer. I'm watching and watching, and all of a sudden this big, giant, basically appliance delivery truck, y'all, shows up. The box that they picked up and brought over into the front porch was huge. Like, I was like, really? I ordered a printer this big? I didn't expect that I'd be getting, a full office Xerox on wheels and stuff. I barely got it into the front door. I had thought it was 64 pounds, but apparently that must have been a different printer I was looking at, because the sticker on this said it was 96 pounds. So I was just like, okay. I had only gotten it inside the door because there was no way that I'm going to even think about trying to get that big giant box up the stairs. But I need to get my old printer downstairs and pulled out before I can put this one in. So, yeah, I was planning on doing that over the weekend, but other things had decided to take a little bit of a precedence. All of that on Friday, though, just completely exhausted me. But I did end up starting cutting the fabric for the Fort Worth Fabric Studio Matters of the Heart quilt along. It is their Valentine's theme quilt along that is happening now. Week 1 was put out this past Monday, and my friend Stephanie of Quilting with Stephanie Stitches is doing the tutorials. So you can go over there if you want the full tutorial, or you can stay tuned for a minute for what I did on, on my 11sies. But yeah, I started cutting everything out and ended up doing a giant miscut. And it was on the fabric that had very, very little extra wiggle room. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover until the patterns come out on Monday, because that's what I miscut on, is the pieces that we will need for this coming Monday. If I can't recover based on the pattern, I'm going to probably have to call Fort Worth Fabric Studio and say, help, I need some oops fabric. Basically, it's a quarter yard I'm going to have to buy from them. And in order to make the shipping cost worth it, because I think they said they're offering free shipping, but I can't say free shipping on such a small order. I'm going to have to find a kit to go with it. I have a kit in mind, but I'd rather save this little bit of money right now. Saturday on my 11sies, though, I actually was sewing up the first week, or sewing up as much as I could of it, because there was a lot of sewing. Stephanie said that it took her about 2.5 hours, and she does pedal to the metal. And in the hour and a half, I managed to get one block done. I did a little bit of extra sewing during that time because math hard that early in the morning. So I did get a little bit more done, but I just wanted to be conscientious of everybody's time, make sure I didn't run into any other lives that I could. So I just finished that one and said, hey, I'm going to get it on. But the good news is, this is the one that I got finished, or maybe this is not the one I got finished on there. But I do have all 4 of the first block done. This is number 3. I'm showing them all as if they're different, but they are all identical. My OCD also managed to get all the hearts pointing the same direction in all 4 blocks. So that was really nice for me to be able to do with my OCD. After I did my live, I ran to my local quilt shop to see if they had any of the ballerina pink that I miscut. I didn't have high hopes because they don't usually carry the Riley Blake solids, and they didn't. I also ended up having to ask them, what was this phone call I got the other day that said you guys had the fabric that I ordered? And apparently, about a month ago, I had gone in looking for some grunge white paper, and they didn't have enough of what I wanted. And I was like, well, I'll just bust into my bolt. Pulling fabric off the bolt is a little bit more difficult at times, especially when I need, a full 4 yards of it. So I just said, okay, I will figure out how to get it off the bolt and trimmed it nicely so I'm not having to deal with extra waste, because fabric expensive, even if it is by the bolt. So luckily there was enough people who really wanted it I said I don't really need it. I've got it, but they still put me in the wish book. Oh well. But I do have all 4 of the blocks done. And the other awesome thing is this weekend I got the Light It Up quilt top finished. So this is, again, freaking huge. The only thing that I have left to do on this is getting it quilted and put the rickrack on. I think I put the rickrack on before I quilt, but I'm not certain. I'm going to have to do some Googling because I've never done rickrack before. So it's either I'm going to quilt it and then do the rickrack, or I'm going to do the rickrack then quilt it. But either way, gotta learn first. So that was a lot of fun that I did this week, even though I was just very exhausted. The 4 blocks and the finishing of the last couple borders on Light It Up just took every ounce of energy that I had this weekend because of all that craziness on Friday. For goals, I'm going to keep it probably a little chill this week. We'll see what's going to end up actually happening because it's going to be a long weekend with, everything that's happening that should be planned. The first important thing that I need to do is I need to figure out my goof, whether I need to call up Fort Worth Fabric Studio and say, help, or whether I should be able to make it up. I won't know until tomorrow morning, and once I know tomorrow morning, then I will know what plan of action to take, and I will probably spend tomorrow evening when I get home from work testing out my plan, hopefully, if I can, and we will see what goes on, or if I have to call Fort Worth Fabric Studio on Tuesday. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I will give an update on Saturday during my 11sies as to how I managed to recover. Basically, what I did was when I was lining up my rulers, instead of doing the dangerous thing of using my 8.5 and cutting up one way and then cutting back down the other way because you don't want to be cutting towards yourself, I had lined 2 rulers up, and I had thought that I had my 6.5 inch on one side and my 8.5 inch on the other. So I peeked in the 2 inches. Although thinking about it, I could have just, lined up the edge of the 8.5 by the at the edge of the fabric. But again, Russ wasn't thinking when he did this stupidity. And because I did 2 layers. So because I did 2 layers, cut 2 inches too wide, that's like 4 inches that I was too wide. And yeah, I didn't quite have enough because 4 to 5 inches too much. And Stephanie, when she showed it, she only had like a 2-inch extra strip. So I knew I was in trouble. But we will see, like I said, when the pattern comes out, what I can do and how I can recover. The second thing that I need to do, if that is second, that is second, is I need to get my printer set up. I'm probably, after this video gets uploaded, probably going to try to head upstairs and tear down the old printer and then figure out a way to get that on Facebook Marketplace so that somebody who thinks that they want to try to figure it out can probably pay like $30 for it and sell it for, $150, $200 after replacing probably a $20 part. We will see what ends up happening, but I will be able to start getting the printer up, which is kind of funny because, as I said, it's a freaking huge box, but when I opened up the box, in it is two smaller boxes and a lot of padding. The top box was the lower tray, and then underneath the bottom box was what would I consider a normal OEM, not even OEM, retail printer box. So basically what I ordered was a regular printer and a case just as all in one, instead of ordering the printer and the printer and not a case, the extra tray, that's what it is, instead of the printer being the two together. So yeah, once I can get that up, I can start printing things again, and then I can start Shannon's project. But the really exciting thing that's going to be happening this week is on Saturday, bright and early at 8 a.m. Eastern, I'm going to have Brekkie with the Guy Who Sews. Sean is going to have me on his channel this Saturday morning as we sew up Clue 7. Wow, we're up to Clue 7 of Cotton Cut's Carnival Puzzle Mystery Quilt. I'm going to be working on the steampunk one, Ferris wheel, with it, as Sean works on, I think he's got the bomb pop, and we will get Clue 7 sewed up. I have seen the instructions, which I need to get printed out, which means I need to get my printer working, or I can probably do that at work. We'll see. It's probably better if I did my own printer. So I'm going to be excited to catch up with Sean as we get one step closer to having this puzzle mystery quilt done. So I think that's going to be about it for today. It was a fairly boring one with the work shenanigans, and I didn't get really a lot done in here, but it's going to be, another week starting tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. If you wouldn't mind, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Subscribing is free and tells YouTube that you like my content and helps me grow. I'm also getting, inches closer to that 1,000 mark, as is my friend Shannon of Slay Arts, who is like, I'm catching up to her heels. I hope you have a great rest of your day and an awesome week. Until next time, stay happy and keep stitching.